Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to officially episode 1 of The Space Between. My name is Josh Scott. I'm the curator person for this podcast. And I'm here today with my friend, Charlie Dean. Welcome, Charlie.
Hey, thanks.
And Charlie, we've known each other for a few years now, I guess.
Yeah, we met like 3 years ago when we shared a hotel room in and I say hotel room, I mean like a hotel closet in New York City.
Gosh. Yeah, it was called Pod 51.
Yeah, and it was actually, I think 2 years ago next Saturday, because it was my birthday.
It was your birthday.
And we went to that pickle restaurant.
Yes. Yeah, so the room we were in was like 2 bunk beds and a sink.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm,
we had to go down the hall for the shower.
You had to go. And I didn't take shower shoes because I wasn't aware that we didn't have a shower in our room.
I didn't either. And I think your feet hung off the bed.
It did. Yeah, it was the small, but it was really cheap. So that was the. But yeah, so our first experience of actually meeting each other.
Yeah.
Staying in a micro hotel room together and celebrating your birthday. So it's really a great way to meet somebody in person for the first time.
Yeah, it was good times. We laughed a lot.
We did laugh a lot. Lots of awkward things happened in Central Park, but that's maybe for another.
At 1 o'clock in the morning,
Lost, wandering around. Well, Charlie, so you just sort of to get where we're going for people is you've recently have begun the transition of leaving, quote unquote, leaving the pastorate. But before we get to what led you to that decision, I'd love to talk to you just a bit about your journey because you've been a pastor for like 20 some years now.
It would have been 19 in June.
Okay, 19 in June.
I graduated seminary in 1999.
So you and I, I started preaching sometime around almost the same time, about 20 years ago. So 20 years in this, doing this gig can really bring a lot of joy and also just take a lot out of you. Yeah.
A lot of pain. When I resigned to our church a month ago, I talked about it's been the highest of highs. And then at times, ministry has absolutely broken me. And there's all kinds of broken pieces. And then like really great pieces inside of me, both. For sure.
Yeah. I think the thing I found too is that you as a pastor get to be with people on their best days, right? I mean, you're there for weddings, you're there for births, but you also get to be there for them on their worst days. And sometimes that means giving people really bad news. And also sometimes it means people just being jerks.
All those things.
All of it. So it's
and sometimes in the same day.
Sometimes in the same day. Think about that.
Yeah, I've said before, like sometimes in the day of a pastor, you walk. I mean, just metaphorically, you walk out of grieving with a family to an angry person to premarital counseling, which is super fun and you laugh a lot.
Yeah.
And to be able to transition quickly from each of those and be, in some ways, be what that person needs you to be in that moment, and then flip a gear, and now I'm in this space. It can be difficult at times, and then to carry all that home and figure out how do I drop all of it.
So I was going to say, then you go home to your family, and they're expecting.
They need dad.
They need dad, right? Yep. It's an emotional whiplash.
Yeah, for sure.
And they don't prepare you for that. Like, there's no way to prepare you for that in seminary.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. So, Charlie, talk to us a bit about why in the world did you get into pastoring?
So I grew up in a really fundamentalist Baptist background, where I describe it as the like what I feel about my kids is if my kids could get into Harvard, and they're not going to get into Harvard, but if my kids got into Harvard, it would just be like, whoa, man, my kids got into Harvard. For us, in my background, I think that was becoming a pastor. Like becoming a pastor was kind of the very best thing you could do with your life. There was nothing more. And so pretty early on in high school, I think my leaders in my youth group, I went to a Christian high school, teachers, influencers in my life identified me as somebody who had leadership skills, communication abilities, whatever else they saw in me. And so I would say I was steered towards the ministry pretty early on. And I didn't feel like anybody was ever being manipulative with me. But for sure, I was really encouraged to move towards the ministry. And so at 18 years old, I was already going to be going to a Christian college. and changed my major to Bible, and was like, at 18, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be a pastor. So it's really been my sole focus for all of my life up until now.
Do you ever feel like you wish, I don't know, that you'd had time to be a kid? What I mean by that is,
right.
I was around the same age, 17 years old, and being sort of led into this, because it was the same scenario, being a pastor was like the holy grail of what you could do with your life. Did you ever just wish, gosh, I wish I'd have been just more of a kid when I was 18? That
I could have just gone to college and gotten drunk like everybody else?
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's for sure, I feel like in that world, I was forced to like be mature and be spiritual and grown up really, really fast. Your response, even thinking got through college, seminary, I'm 25 years old and I'm responsible for the souls of teenagers, like it's a really heavy, you have to grow up really, really fast and really be on really quickly. There's not a lot of space to, kind of the sowing your wild oats in your youth years, really.
Yeah.
My sowing of my wild oats was as a youth pastor. That's weird.
Was that your first gig as a youth pastor?
Yeah, I was a youth pastor for 4 years. I went to seminary and I went back to my home church, which was an interesting experience. I really wanted to work for my pastor, and he was an amazing guy, and I loved working for him. And I probably would have never gone back to a Baptist church, except that I always said that my pastor was the most un-Baptist Baptist pastor there was, and so really loved him and loved the chance to work for him. So I went home and I was a youth pastor for 4 years. Just real quick, 4 years. Then 4 years I went to a mega church, and this dates me totally, but I was hired as the Gen X pastor, which is funny because that's not even really a thing that people say anymore. But I was hired to kind of in this mega church create like an alternative worship service with, Pearl Jam and Nirvana kind of stuff. And then after doing 4 years of that, I left that church and started the church where I've been pastoring, Imago Dei, here in Peoria for the last 10 years. And that's been the real joy the last 10 years.
So what was that? I mean, I've never worked on staff in a megachurch. I did start at my own home church, though. After my pastor left, I became the interim pastor at like 19 and 20.
That's right. That. Yeah.
So, going home, and they were very kind to me. It was a good experience. I just didn't want to get, I just knew if I like took a permanent job that I would never leave.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see other parts and places and things.
I don't think we want to spend time here, but I was actually eventually fired by my home church. So it was great until it wasn't. And it's a long, complicated story. And it was the nicest firing ever. And it was really, really painful. For a big part of my life, I would have said that was the most painful part of my life journey was the church I grew up in saying, you know what, we don't think you fit here anymore. And so
that had to be so hard to process.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's because not just a job.
No, it was, and to even make it more complicated, as they were helping me out the door, my dad had retired, and my dad was doing some part-time stuff on the staff as well. And so like I was leaving and my dad was coming on. And so my parents were in a really awkward space where the church is hiring them and pushing their son out. And, it was so I mean, what the thing is I recently started seeing a therapist, and he was just pointing out to me in my life how many places I've been in really complicated relationships. Like church world, period, is complicated relationships. Are these people my friends, or are they my parishioners? Or what is my relationship to these people? And it's really a case by case. And sometimes I'm not even clear in my own head. This person that's sitting across from me, are they my friend, or are they a parishioner? And my therapist loves to say, like, the reason why my relationship with him works is because it's really clear. He's my therapist. And at the end of the day, he doesn't care what I think about him at all.
Right.
He'll just say what he has to say because he's really good at what he does. And in church world, he just keeps pointing out like, boy, when you say you started a church with your friends, that sounds super complicated to me. And I was like, oh yeah, super complicated. Thank you. It was almost a little bit validating. Like, man, that's why it's hard sometimes, is because things are really, really complicated sometimes.
Yeah. And you're with somebody and you're hanging out and you're friends, but then I just found that sometimes that then you do something to anger them or hurt them, like something you'd gone, or they try to make your life difficult. Like I remember being told, like, you have to be careful how close you let people. And I remember thinking at the time, that's just complete bull. Like, I don't want to be in that sort of world. And
I used to say that too.
And I've not done a very good job at it, because there's constantly I'm wondering, like, oh, did I just give them too much information on me?
Right.
You know what I mean? That's not a way I want to live.
Yeah, the way you just said there, like, so I know people that I've sat across tables from, and I thought we were friends until I changed my beliefs or did something that they didn't like. And then I find out, like, oh, we weren't really friends. You were my quote friend because I was your pastor. And when I did something you didn't like, real friends in real life, when you do stupid shit, they're fine with it. Like, you just roll with it. Like, that's what friends do. Yep. But and so that's where I haven't had my guard up probably over the years as much as I should. But then that just feels like a really inauthentic way to pastor. And so it just feels super, super complicated.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, rather than kind of be this one person with church people, because really my friends are church people. My closest friends are the people I work with here, or the people we're in community with here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to be a different person with them.
Right.
But then you have to be willing to take the consequences.
Yeah, that leaves you vulnerable too. And I could, and I'm sure we could both do this, is I could start giving you a list of names. Mm-hmm. And some of them don't even know the degree to which they've hurt me. And more often, I wish they would tell me the thing I did. More often, they just disappear. And you just know, like, I pissed them off, and I don't even know really what I did.
We've done this together for 10 years, and you leave and don't tell me.
Yeah.
Or when they email you, like, this is just to let you know we're no longer going to, wait, what? We've done, I was there when so-and-so died. I was there when your baby was born. I was there. Right. And all I get's an email, if that. Come on. I would at least like an edible arrangement. Spell it out on pineapple. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no kidding. Like, that's been probably the most painful stuff. Is I can take levels of criticism and people not liking my ideas, but it's been that really personal. And I know people probably don't mean it personally, but when I feel like I've sacrificed my life, I've given my life to this cause, like, I'm not getting rich doing this for sure. Yeah. I'm giving my life and my best years of my life. And for you can just walk away from that like, no big deal. It's been really hurtful over the years. And that's been part of my journey. I know we'll get to this in a little bit, but that's been part of my journey out of the church. Is I've said to a couple people, now I guess I'm saying it to the whole world, is that I realized,
or just my mom,
or just your mom, whoever happens to listen. Jennifer said she would give it a listen. My wife said she'd give it a listen.
Sweet.
I no longer have it in me to keep doing this. That one of the part of the reason that I recognize that I don't want to be in ministry anymore is I don't want to keep doing this. And I don't know how to keep the professional distance. There's pastors that are really good at that, and I respect that and admire that. And they get the freedom to pastor in a way that I can't. And yet I just, and that's not all of it, but it for sure is a piece of it, is just recognizing, like, this isn't my thing.
Yeah. And how, we can talk about how it impacts us as the people doing the job, but when you think about how it impacts your partner, your kids, like the ripple effect for some of this stuff. I've seen my family just torn up and devastated over some things that have happened with people. And
sure.
Man, the cost of all that is so high.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you left a complicated situation at home church, and then you went to a mega church, which doesn't seem complicated at all. Just on the outside looking in, mega churches always think that's got to be really complicated.
Yes and no. The thing about a mega church is, in some ways, it felt good in that talking about what we're